Evening. Welcome to tonight's launch of the Digital Status Crisis report. My name is Andrea Dumitrache. I'm CEO of the 3 Million, and I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. I'll introduce the agenda in just a minute, but first, just for some Zoom housekeeping, we've got about 28 of us in at the moment, but we're expecting more to join us. We go along. So do please keep your mic on mute. And if you're up for it, it'd be lovely to see you. We'll have plenty of opportunity to kind of have a discussion later on as well. As many of you will know, the 3 Million is a grassroots organization of EU citizens, and our work is by migrants for migrants and started in the aftermath of Brexit. And ever since, we've been challenging the hostile environment that our communities are now also experiencing. And the EU settlement scheme, which was implemented to provide an immigration status for EU citizens after Brexit, was the first scheme to also provide people with a digital-only immigration status in the UK. So since 2019, when this came into place, we've continuously heard from people about issues they've been experiencing as a consequence of not having tangible proof of status. So we've developed a thorough understanding of what goes wrong. And at the beginning of this year, that system also was extended to all migrants in the UK and is now being referred to as eVisas. So all 10 million migrants in the UK now have to rely on eVisas to prove their right to work, their right to rent, access services, and travel back to the UK. So this is what our research is based on, people's experiences, both EU citizens and migrants from all over the world who live here in the UK who have reported problems to us. Every week, we speak to people who, through no fault of their own, suffer the consequences of this digital system that's prone to errors. And in the most vulnerable case, in the most extreme cases, we've seen vulnerable people being made street homeless because of computer errors and leading to their immigration status not being recognized. And most people who find themselves unable to prove their rights are ridden with anxiety over their future, afraid to travel back when they know they're likely to be denied entry back into the UK. But it's not only that those that are vulnerable or digitally illiterate that who suffer, because these errors can affect anyone at any point. One day the system works fine, and the next, your details are no longer showing correctly. So tonight, what we're going to do is you're going to first hear from Shingai, who will share her experience of how eVisa errors led to insecurity, lost job opportunities, and the feeling of powerlessness. Then we'll share the findings of our report. So you'll hear from our research and policy manager, Kaylin Narita. And that will include an analysis, our analysis of the types of problems that happen, the scale of the problem, and the most common myths perpetuated about the system, as well as warnings on how this will interact with new proposals for digital ID being introduced for all UK residents. Then our head of policy and advocacy, Monique Hawkins, will go through our recommendations and we'll finish the session today by 7:30 with giving you suggestions on how you can support the campaign, whether you're a part of an organization or a community member who wants to take action. And we'll also have discussions in smaller groups so you can hear from each other and connect. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Shingai to share her story. Over to you.
Hi everybody. My name is Shingai. I am originally from Zimbabwe. I can't see all of you, but welcome to you all. I recently attended the roundtable with 3 million to discuss this e-visa issue that people are facing at Parliament. And what I'm going to read out is obviously what I actually read out at the roundtable when we went to Parliament. So if I'm looking up at my screen, so please do excuse me if I'm not looking at you guys. So in November of 2023, I logged into the .gov UK Prove Your Right to Work service to generate a share code for a new job. Instead of my own photograph, I saw 3 passport images of another person attached to my name and to my details. The last time I used the service in July of 2022, everything was correct. But now the system that employers rely on to confirm my identity had effectively erased me. I contacted UKVI immediately. They confirmed that internally they could see my correct image, but not the incorrect ones I was seeing online. At one point, I was even asked if I knew the person in the photographs and if perhaps they were a relative. That was devastating, distressing, actually. I had reported a system error, yet I felt treated as a suspect rather than a supported citizen. The case was referred to a technical team, but no time frame was given. Only after the intervention by my MP and the 3 million was my image restored in December of 2023. In January of 2024, it happened again. My biometric resident card was flagged as invalid, marked expired, or lost, stolen. When I called UKVI, I was told their records showed that I'd naturalized in 2021. That was simply incorrect. What happened in 2021 was that I was granted refugee status. Once again, my MP and the 3 million intervened to resolve the error. In June of 2024, while raising awareness within the Eritrean community in Leeds about share code errors, I checked my own record again using the Home Office link from the previous rectification. My image had vanished, replaced by an error code. After repeated login failures and clearing my browser cookies, I finally regained access to my account. So 3 times in the space of 8 months, my right to live and work in the UK was compromised by system errors that I had no power to correct myself. I stayed in my job because I feared that if I left, I might never be able to prove my right to work elsewhere. And the lessons that I advised when we were at the round table was that no one's legal status should exist online only. What was needed is clear that physical proof of status must be reinstated as a safeguard. Transparent correction routes must exist with accountability and timelines. Independent oversight of data integrity is essential so errors are not hidden or minimized. And lastly, just move my computer screen. If we want to trust a digital identity, we must design it to withstand failure and never leave people to disappear inside broken systems. So that is the experience that I kind of went through. I check my share code every week, every Sunday. I check is part of my routine now because I can't afford to just wait until I actually need it, because trying to fix it, everything that I've gone through, if not for the 3 million, you just be hiding away somewhere, because it's either there's some lawyers out there who are charging you crazy amounts of money when realistically there should be a free service that should be helping people, that should be keeping you updated. To this day, I've never received an email from all the calls that I made. I've never received an email from the Home Office to say, oh, we acknowledge that you reported this issue. So it's quite scary that our whole life is on a database that we don't have control on. There's nobody on the background to actually help us. there isn't anything to kind of hold on to say, you know what, it's going to be all right. Because if not for the 3 million, people are just disappearing, because who's helping? Where do you go? So that's my story. And I hope, obviously, if anybody is watching right now, if you know anybody who's going through something like this, to please not let them hide away, because this is an issue that's affecting everybody. It doesn't matter the color, the race, where you come from. If you're a migrant and you've got an eVisa and you're not a British citizen, you are likely to come across something like this. And it is something that we need to start standing up and raising our voices about, because we're not committing any crimes. We're just wanting our own identities back. I think that's probably the most important thing. We came here with an identity. So to have it taken away and be controlled, I think that's unfair and quite inhumane. Um, we're not prisoners. We're contributing to the community, to the society. So we should have something concrete in our hands when we go out, and something like this happens, and we can just pull something out and everything is okay. Whereas I don't have anything. I don't know if anybody else, but I have zero that actually says I'm allowed to work. And that I'm entitled to specific benefits. I haven't got anything except logging on to the eVisa to show that information. So it's just obviously for me to raise this issue. If people are out there that are having this issue, we need to start coming together to find ways of trying to get this turned around for us. Because at the end of the day, like I said, we are all contributing to the society. We all deserve that humanity because we are human. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Shingai. And yeah, unfortunately, your story isn't uncommon, and yeah, it's one of the biggest repercussions that we've seen of errors is when people can no longer prove the right to work. So when this happens at a time when exactly someone needs to apply for a new job, it actively steals those opportunities away from people, and the fact that the measures of redress are just not sufficient. Yeah, it's really, really problematic, and one of the key areas where yeah, we know there needs to be much more support in place for people. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next, Kaylin will present the main types of issues that we've seen come up through our report. And our analysis of those, and especially the scale of this problem, because we know, we're very much aware, we see very few cases, only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to digital status problems, because lots of people were aware that won't have even heard of the 3 million and won't know where to go when these issues happen. So over to you, Kaylin. I'm gonna share the slides.
Thank you so much, Andrea and Shingai and everyone for being here today. It's really grateful for Shingai for sharing your story, because I think it's really important for us to remember that people exist in these systems, and that it's not just these statistics and stats that I'll be going through from our evidence base today, but this is really, has a human impact, and we need to humanize these kind of technology systems. So I'm going to be going through our digital status crisis report, and I started off our presentation on the MP roundtable by making a note that we all know that technology fails, and it's going to be very poignant today because my technology may fail while presenting. So if that happens, Monique will come in and take over. But for the 10 million migrants in the UK that are dependent on an eVisa, it's not just about presenting on Zoom, but really, as Shingai said, this is when technology fails people, this is impacting their ability to prove their rights. And we're seeing a fundamental shift in how people are proving their legal right to exist here in the UK. And we believe that we're facing a digital status crisis, and that we're seeing the echoes of the Windrush scandal, and that we have a group of people who have the legal right to be here and are unable to prove this. So Andrea, if I could go to the next slide, please. So just to ground us before we go into some of the findings of the report, many people here may know what an eVisa looks like, but for those who don't, this is what an eVisa, when we're talking about an eVisa, this is what would appear. And I think what's really, really important for us to understand is that an eVisa is an electronic record of your immigration status, and this is accessed through Home Office websites. So we no longer have physical cards like BRPs or BRCs. Instead, people have to navigate to a website and log in just like any other type of account and generate a 9-digit share code that you'll see on the screen here. And then this is passed on to the third-party checker. So if you need to prove your right to rent or work or open a bank account, essentially any kind of service that's asking you to prove your immigration status, this is now the process that you go through. And again, this is a fundamental shift that changes from just a simple physical document that can be scanned and passed over to a complex system that requires constant internet access, requires a smartphone to set up. You need to have digital literacy to navigate and constantly produce and upkeep this account as well. And it's, again, a complete transformation of how people are proving their rights. Can I have the next slide, please? So as Andrea mentioned, we kind of tried to group the categories of problems that we've experienced, that we've heard about from our own data. And this is to say that there's quite a lot of different, very unique problems that come up, but this is kind of a wide kind of categorization of problems. And I think Shingai's story really touches on quite a few of these and overlapping them. So the first kind of category of problems is what Shingai shared today, which is that there's just errors in the eVisa information. So this would be that incorrect information, like a photograph or a visa expiry date, or any other personal information is showing up on your account. So, you know, in essence, if your ID does not have correct information about yourself, you know, this is completely void. You can't really prove your immigration status if the account does not have accurate information. And another fundamental shift is that now everyone is in charge of upkeeping their own UK VI account. So if you get a new passport, if you change your name, this is something that you need to constantly upkeep through your own account. And we've heard, and people are having difficulties maintaining their accounts with ID documents. So this is just, again, a technical failure of not being able to upload these documents. We also have people who are just can't use an eVisa as proof. So even if you have maintained your account, even if you have access and produced a share code at the airport, we're having people who are running into third-party checkers that are not familiar with the eVisa system, either demand a physical proof, or in airports, often we're seeing people who are asked to share the live feed of their eVisa, so what you saw on the previous screen, instead of this share code. So this is a really fundamental problem that people, even if you have access to your immigration proof, that you just can't use it. And this is really not allowing people to access their own rights. Another crucial problem is this inability to access an eVisa. So this can happen through multiple different ways. If somebody else set up your account for you and you lose that kind of access. Or if the entire UK VI account website is down, again, you just don't have access to your immigration proof. And really, as Shingai said about this kind of acknowledgement and support from the Home Office, we're constantly seeing that people do not have access to support when things go wrong. So these critical errors that really mean the difference between being able to rent, work, study, or access public services. When you're reporting these errors, you're getting an automated message back saying that it's going to take longer than expected to fix. People are going in these constant kind of cycles of web chats and phone calls and just not being able to speak to a human operator. And we've actually just recently got a Freedom of Information request that confirmed that a significant portion of calls for people who are ringing into the Home Office are not being answered. So this is very concerning that these kind of high volumes of people requesting help for their e-visas are not being satisfied. And all of these problems very much fundamentally impact will kind of stop people from being able to live, work, and study in the UK. Can I have the next slide, please? So we have collected and correlated all of these kind of types of problems from our own data, and we run online reports that people can log any type of error or issue they're having with their eVisa. Now, as Andrea said, we know that we're not really getting the full picture, and we really have pushed to try and have the Home Office, either through parliamentary questions or freedom of information requests, tell us just the scale of eVisa errors, because we know that people are having quite a difficult time getting through and having their problems fixed. So we tried to kind of push for transparency, but that this was kind of not met. So in order to try and get a scope of the scale using our own data and own evidence, we were able to kind of indicate that we know that we're getting such a small tip of the iceberg of problems. So one way to think about it really is that for every one person who reports into our online form, 500 other people can be experiencing this issue. Now, the Home Office has kind of pushed back and said that this data doesn't represent the experience of eVisa users. But again, we're really pushing that if this is, you know, it is a ballpark figure that 900,000 people, 940,000 people are being affected, but we would love clarity on these numbers. So this is really just using kind of our data compared to known errors. And this is kind of how we're trying to build this scale of who this is actually impacting. Can I have the next slide, please? So we decided to kind of frame our report through myths, because especially as digital ID has now been announced as a further rollout for all British citizens, we found that there was quite a lot of misconceptions about what digital ID was, the current uses of digital ID, and also what an eVisa is. So we really wanted to debunk these myths. So we have 5 myths that we cover in our report. And I think the first myth really covers quite a crucial big chunk of what's misunderstood and perpetuated with the eVisa. And the Home Office's favorite campaign is to say that eVisas cannot be lost, stolen, or tampered with like a physical document. But we've heard from Shingai today and from our own and from countless other people, we know that this is not true, that people can lose the eVisa keys when a third party sets up their account. They lose access to that person, and they essentially can't log into their account anymore. We have, when people try to log in and produce a share code, but the entire UKVI website is down, in a sense, that is kind of feeling as if your eVisa has been stolen, because overnight or suddenly you're no longer able to prove your immigration status. And as Shingai said, we do know that data could be tampered with. And this is kind of a constant problem of people logging into their accounts and either seeing that there's no photo available, seeing that it's been switched with somebody, and just not having that trust that the data that on your eVisa will be correct and accurate. Can I have the next slide? So myth 2 and 3. So we really wanted to debunk this idea that is being perpetuated with the rollout of digital ID, that by having these kind of more digital systems, this would tackle irregular working. And we see this as completely false, given the fact that we currently have a digital-only way of proving your right to work for all migrants. And in this system, this has done nothing to really get to the root cause of worker exploitation, or is not going to increase compliance with employers with immigration rules. But really, in reality, we do have countless cases of people whose eVisa issues have led them to kind of not get a job opportunity, have, as Shingai said, fear to change jobs, to move around in their career. So the reality of it is that the current digital system is kind of stopping people from proving their legal right to work. And myth 3 is really about, I said the word myth a lot, so it's kind of like feeling weird in my mouth. Myth 3 is that there's support for when something goes critically wrong with your eVisa. So on the screen, there's a couple kind of accounts of just this complete spiral of not being able to speak to somebody. And, this kind of critical issue is something that needs to happen right away, because this isn't just about, has real life impact about people's ability to prove their ability to live in the UK. Sorry, next slide. Myth 4 and 5. So one of the things that was pushed not only with the new mandatory digital ID policy, but also with eVisas, is that by introducing kind of digital versions of identity documents, we're going to have more efficient uses of public services. And this is something that we are uncertain of. We've seen cases in which that people, again, have these issues with their eVisas, and this has made it so that they've been cut off from benefits because their eVisa wrongly shows that they're not wrong conditions of their immigration service records, or we've had people who have wrongly been charged NHS bills. So this is something that we're uncertain with, because in eVisa, this implementation issue of data quality and the eVisa system not being stable has actually hindered people's public access to public services. And in the report, we really draw attention to other cases like the Adahar system, in which the enforcement of mandatory digital ID has actually led to people dying from being excluded from social services. So this is something that we remain uncertain of. And our final myth is this idea that adopting more digital tools will help the Home Office prevent another Windrush-like scandal. So we see this as completely false, and actually one of quite a dangerous myth to be propagating. So after the Windrush scandal, one of the things that the Home Office promised was that by kind of keeping better data and records of people, this would help to ensure that people would never have this experience again of not being able to prove their right to live in the UK. But the very systems that they've put in place, we're actually seeing are failing people and actually causing some of the data problems that I've already spoken about, and kind of have been pushing people again into having an unstable way of proving their right to work and live in the country. And final slide, please. So again, just to wrap up, in this report, we really emphasize that we're seeing the echoes of the Windrush scandal, and that we have people in the country who have rights and are not able to prove those rights. And I'll put in the link after I'm done chatting. But we recently there was a news article that kind of covered our report, and the Home Office again kind of rebuked some of our statements about the amount of people that it's impacting. But again, this system, it shouldn't just work it needs to work for everybody. And we're seeing that consistently there's data quality issues that are going to kind of continue unless there's a real readdress of how these are handled. And that all of these kind of issues, even if 1 minute or 1 hour without access to your immigration proof is really has a huge impact on people's lives, and kind of will lead to people being denied rights. And as Shingai kind of beautifully put today, like it's about having your own control of your identity. And really that no physical copy means that what the computer says goes, and we're really very concerned about what kind of data systems are being put in place. But that's a lot of me talking. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm going to pass over to Monique to kind of go through some of our recommendations.
Thanks very much, Kaylin. So we set out a few recommendations in our report. And firstly, we recommend that enormous resources are applied to fixing the foundations of the eVisa system before they could even remotely start thinking about any kind of mandatory ID system, because we have been told that if this mandatory digital ID was to come about, it would essentially, for the 10 million migrants, it would sit on top of the eVisa system. So it's not like they're going to start from scratch. So we consider that any errors in the eVisa system will simply be inherited. By resources, we mean having proper helplines where people can actually get through quickly and speak to a human being to explain their problems. Currently, everyone tells us that when they do manage to get through, they're very often there's an automated response that just says, we're going to send you a link to a video, and they get cut off. The FOI that Kaylin mentioned earlier also said that the average wait time was 20 minutes. It was something like 480,000 calls were made over a 12-month period, and I think about 120,000 of those were not even answered, and the average wait time was 20 minutes. So we think these helplines got to be far better. We think they've got to throw massive resources at proactively addressing these technical problems and eVisa data inaccuracy. In a lot of the errors that we've been reporting over the years and writing letters to the Home Office about, we very often ask them, are you, when we identify some kind of systemic issue, like people with missing photographs, we ask them, are you able to run a sort of scan to identify everyone that's got this problem and then fix it for them and notify them? And they say, no, we can't do that. We rely on people to contact us if there's a problem. And of course, just like Shingai said, you only actually notice that your status is broken at the point of needing it, which is why she's making a point every Sunday to check it, given the awful experiences she's had. And then their development processes, I think, have got to be massively improved. I mean, we've seen a number of bugs that we wrote about this year where they've admitted that they were trying to fix one thing and there was a side effect where something else went wrong. And, there just needs to be far better processes and system testing. I used to work in IT myself, and the systems we worked on had sort of massive regression testing that sort of would run overnight and run sort of tens of thousands of tests if you made any software change to make sure that anything you changed didn't break something that was already working. So can I go to the next slide, please? So our second recommendation is that there's got to be a better proof of immigration status. So we do accept that the world is going digital. I don't think it's realistic for us to ask that there's no digital form of this, but we think that any form of digital status has to be stable, reliable, and secure. That means by stable, we mean that it doesn't sort of show your correct status one day and then the next day it suddenly shows your status is expired or you've got a different name on there or whatever. I think crucially, it's got to be possible to prove status when you're not connected to the internet. The Home Office completely have rejected that demand of ours, but we think the onus should not be on the status holder to be connected. It's fine if they want to insist that the person checking your status is connected to the internet using whatever app they're using. And in our proposal that I'll talk about in a minute, they would be scanning something that you've got, but the status holder should not have to have that responsibility of being connected to the internet. We've had far too many reports of people stuck in pre-boarding lounges. There was one awful report from an elderly lady who didn't have access to the internet while she was abroad, and she was asked before being allowed on the plane to prove her status there and then. And she ended up in tears, and it was only because some other person who was around who spoke her language was able to help her get connected and show her status. We think that any solution should have a backup. I mean, I use boarding passes, I use those on my phone, but I pretty much always print them off anyway because I'm always slightly paranoid that my phone might just die when I get to the airport. And there has to be some form for people who are digitally excluded to have it in a permanent card form. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is a picture from our sort of alternative proposal. You'll probably, if you've experienced it yourself, or if you're an organization working with people, you probably recognize the stuff on the left, which is the current system, where you have to go through all the various steps of inputting security codes and stuff before you eventually hopefully get your status or you get error messages. Whereas in our vision, the status holder would just have this secure QR code, and the status checker would be able to scan that with a dedicated app. The nature of it being a secure QR code means that they can be totally confident that that QR code could only have been generated by the UK government, so that there's no potential for fraud, and it should show stably that you have the rights that you have. Can I have the next slide, please? So these are just, again, from our report, a couple of just made up screenshots of what this could look like. We have our actual full proposal. You can download it there, but you know, it could be an app, it can be a card. We can't see any reason why this can't be possible. The Home Office always used to say that they couldn't go back to biometric cards because they're so expensive and they're not secure enough. Well, a card like this is the whole technology behind secure QR codes is so secure, and it's cheap. It's cheap printing. I mean, if the National Trust can give every member a card every year, we don't see why the Home Office can't do this. Can we go to the next slide, please? So our third recommendation is that we consider there should be a full independent review into the eVisa system, and to increase the transparency on the volume and range of errors reported to the Home Office. So we've it's the DCMS, which is the Department of Culture, Media and Science, which is now called DCIT, Science, Innovation, Technology, I think. They've created this set of rules called the UK Digital Identity Trust Framework, which is based on 6 principles, which is privacy, transparency, inclusivity, interoperability, proportionality, and good governance. And in our original sort of longer version of our proposal, which you can download there, we actually measured the eVisa system against those 6 principles, because of course the Home Office is not part of DCIT and completely did its own thing with the eVisa system. And you won't be surprised to hear that I consider that the eVisa fails all these important tests. It was built on a really tiny rushed trial in 2018. There was one single published evaluation of this trial which said it needed more testing, that it couldn't replace physical documents, and yet it was just rolled out to 6 million EU citizens without any parliamentary oversight. The Home Office has ignored our consistent and loud warnings over the last 7 years, which we think is not proportionate, is not transparent, is not good governance. People's data has been mixed up with that of others. You know, we've seen quite a few people, literally an entangled status, as we call it, where someone would log on and suddenly see someone else's photograph or their own photograph and someone else's name. So we have no confidence at all that confidentiality and privacy is maintained at all times. As for interoperability, this system, we say, doesn't work internationally. Airline staff abroad are simply not prepared to log on to a government website and to use the share code that the Home Office tells people to have. So the system isn't interoperable, whereas our proposal is, we even had meetings with ICAO, which is the International Civil Aviation Organization, and talk them through our proposal, and they consider that our proposal sounds very ICAO compliant and could work. But most prominently, that last well, one of those principles is inclusivity, and we definitely think the eVisa system is not inclusive. Just as a specific example of this, there's a text-to-speech accessibility tool that is provided. It simply doesn't work. It doesn't, firstly, allow people to get to the correct web page. One advisor told us that even when he helped someone to get over the hurdle and to get to the right web page, he was trying to help somebody who was blind. The process took 30 minutes. And then the final share code that is read out misses out 3 of the 9 characters. So the share code is completely pointless and unusable. And that blows my mind, that the system that is supposedly designed to help visually impaired people to prove their immigration status doesn't even correctly read out the full share code. So I don't see how this system has been tested. So that's a very long way of saying why we think an independent review is needed. So if we can go on to the next slide. So really all of the above is kind of summarized by the fact that we kind of demand that the government demonstrates that the lessons of the critical failures of the eVisa system have been learnt before even thinking about mandatory digital ID. That would be another thing built on top of this. And as part of that, we said there has to be very meaningful engagement with relevant stakeholders. I think we've all got experience of engagement that is a little bit one way, but we think it has to be much, much deeper and broader. It has to include people who are actually impacted by the eVisa system. Next slide, please. So one of the things we did is there's an MP, Pete Wishart from the SNP, who set up an early day motion, also known as an EDM. And this EDM expresses serious concern about the eVisa system, and it calls for an independent review. Now, we've had a lot of people write to their MP to ask them to sign this EDM. A lot of MPs, especially Labour MPs who are in government, will say they've got a policy not to ever sign EDMs. Others say that they don't think EDMs achieve anything. Now, we know that an EDM in itself doesn't achieve anything as such. It's not like a bill that gets debated or anything that could ever become law. However, we see it as a very useful show of support, and it shows an MP cares about the issue. And you can see that despite this blanket Labour policy not to sign, it's still been signed by 7 Labour MPs, which is great. So I think that's the end of my part, and I will hand back to Andrea.
Thank you very much, Monique. So as you've heard basically from Shingai, Kaylin, and Monique, we recently had a roundtable in Parliament, and it was really well attended with about 9 MPs coming along, lots of Labour representation within that as well, and we launched the report there. And what we found was that actually most of the MPs that came to that event came because they had heard directly from one of their constituents that they had experienced an eVisa problem. So we are putting a lot of our own efforts into supporting people to actually engage with their MPs and ask for their help as well in solving these problems. But we wanted to also share how systematically the tools and resources you can use from us to also encourage people to do the same. So we know we've got lots of organizations on the call as well. So we've put together a statement for you to endorse the report and express your concerns as well on this issue. You can see the current endorsements, and we're aware we're part of a large coalition of organizations as well that are raising the alarm on digital status. So we'll share the link on how to do that in just a minute on signing that statement. You can also, we'll share social media assets about the report afterwards that will be unbranded for you to share on your own channels as well, and raise more awareness of this and how people can also report their own issues through our eVisa problems website and reported tools. It would be the more engagement we see directly from people who are affected with decision makers, we've seen more interest come to the surface. So our next task is basically to encourage your service users and or community members to write to their own MP, and we've got template letters for that, And if you are in a position to do so, organizing a joint meeting with the MP that represents the constituency that your organization is based on would be great. So you can see a recent example there of a meeting that was organized by Open Rights Group with Peter Kyle, where we were able to come together to show evidence of how this is affecting people. And for community members, we've got similar asks, yes, to engage with your MP, but we also have key messages prepared and a digital status campaigns pack that runs you through the steps of that in preparing you, how in the steps to prepare for the meeting, key messages for the meeting itself, and then afterwards how to create that public accountable relationship with that that decision maker. And you've got the support of our team and our organizers in doing that as well, in either attending, if that's possible, that meeting with you, or definitely preparing you for that meeting as well. Sharing the report itself is also really important if that's where what you're up for doing, and raising these issues further. We also we'll talk a little bit more about this in our breakout groups, but we've recently started re-energizing our local groups of EU citizens. So you can join a local EU citizens WhatsApp group, and we can match you with people in your local area where you could have joint meetings. I'm gonna stop sharing now, and for the next step, we really want to encourage more conversations between the people who have come together to get today, because you're engaged within this campaign and you're passionate about justice for digital status. So we've prepared some breakout groups where we're going to talk about engagement and campaigning and what makes you feel enabled to take further steps, to come together with others and take action on these issues, and also what's holding us back as well, and to talk more in depth about those next steps. So we're gonna have about half an hour for those discussions in small groups, and you're going to have a facilitator in each of the breakout groups that will make themselves known to you when we open them. It's obviously also an opportunity to ask questions from about the report as well, and have those conversations.